You're not bothered by China owning
No,
large
because that would be the
swaths of
easiest thing to seize. If we ever got into a like, let's say we go to war over Taiwan, we could immediately appropriate that. Now, if they started like poisoning the land or something, sure, absolutely ban them from doing that.
How would you know?
Well, what about espionage?
Hold on. You've given control of your food supply to a foreign country or a large portion of it.
What percentage are we talking about here? Because I'm guessing it's less than 1% of American farmland that's owned by China.
Let's pull up the number so we can.
Like if we're talking about 20%, we can talk. But if we're talking about like 1%, that's probably just like investment diversity for the Chinese. In which case, they're spending money over here, and we're getting more money.
What does that?
What is that money? What do you mean by we get more money?
It means somebody went, I can make more money having this.
3.6% of U.S. agricultural land is. Canada owns Canada owns 1/3 of our land.
What?
Wow.
I don't think that's right.
Hold up.
Canada holding the largest share, about 1/3 of foreign owned land.
Yeah,
right. Okay, that sounds more right to me. Yeah. If you can find
No. China owns 0.2 of all land.
I'm not bothered by 0.2. I mean,
I am. I'll tell you why. So they are producing food in our food supply. So the way the food chain works, most people, I assume know this. The farmland is going to be the bottom, which means small amounts of that are going to spread out to a much larger amount of our food supply. It theoretically could be greater than, depending on what they're growing, you don't know for sure. But let's say that 0.02% actually is, it's hard to know. Some of the agriculture will be for things that are, animal feed or whatever. Actually, you know what? I'll say this. It doesn't even matter. If China begins genetically engineering or infecting food with something not intended to kill a person overnight, but to, say, lower their ability to reproduce by 1%, China's on the 100-year, 1,000-year plan. Why would we allow a foreign adversary? We're not at war, but they are an adversary. They're listed in federal law as an adversary. They're in codified as one. Why would we allow them any degree of control in our food production?
If you could find any evidence that they were doing anything untowards, I would be happy.
They've released multiple blights in the U.S. that have attacked our.
They were shipping viruses. They're running illegal biolabs.
Yeah,
they've caught numerous Chinese CCP members transporting drugs through airports.
Well, I meant more
on viruses through
airports. But like just focusing on the agriculture. If Phil, to your point, if they are bringing blights that are affecting farm and crops and things, then sure, stop them. But just the idea that like foreigners can own farmland doesn't bother me. But if there's some additional thing going on.
I think that who the foreigner is matters. I think that China's an adversary, right? They're not rivals. We're not partners. China is an adversary of the United States.
Maybe we should get selling debt to them then.
We should behave like that.
So again, the bigger picture here that I see is you're sitting in your rocking chair, sipping your delicious sun tea as the Chinese peasant comes over and asks you, so what would you like to eat? And you're like, this is great. And behind you, they're tearing down the walls of your home. They're pissing and crapping all over the place. And you're like, I don't care because I'm getting it good right now. And then there's a 17-year-old guy watching it happen going, bro, why are you doing this right now? And you're like, who cares? It's great. So an example of that is China, for instance, has birth tourism. Mm-hmm. So I forgot the number. There's a story recently. There are companies in China that fly women to the United States to give birth and immediately fly back.
Yeah.
There's something like 30,000 in the past couple of years. These are U.S. citizens now exploiting our laws for one purpose. In 20 years and 30 years, they're going to come back as full-fledged citizens, but loyal to the Chinese Communist Party. They are building up control in our country. And their strategy is we can conquer these bloated gluttons because they love it. Right now, they are more than happy to sell out this country for a short-term gain. 30 years from now, they will be our servants.
I would be happy to have a constitutional amendment that restricts citizenship to people that are descended from a citizen.
And that's all well and great, and we agree, except the issue is that right now that's not the case.
Okay. I mean, if we're talking about 0.2% of farmland, like that is a small enough thing that you could maybe compel me to go, okay.
The location matters, what land
they're outside military bases.
Okay. So like if you can make a compelling argument that it's going to impel national security there, you might
Why let any of it happen at all?
So I do care about comparative advantage because I think that's kind of foundational.
How many refugees do you have in your house?
just to finish, comparative advantage, we're getting kind of to the root of economics, right? That's why I'm big on that. We don't live in a zero-sum world. I don't want to go back to a zero-sum world. We tried that for 2,000 years. It's bad.
Okay, I got a question for you.
But with like 0.2%, I'm like, if I'm like an 8 on comparative advantage in terms of how much I care, I'm like a 3 on this 0.2% farmland thing. So like if like I could concede that, I'm not as bothered by that one.
All right, I got a question for you. How big's your house?
I don't know. I've got 2 bedrooms.
2 bedrooms?
Yeah.
Using both of them?
Yeah, I use one to sleep in. I use one to film in.
Oh, so you got extra space. Mm-hmm. It would economically benefit you if I could get one of my friends from Guadalajara to come and stay in your place. Mm-hmm. We're going to do that whether you want it to or not.
And they're going to stay in my place against my will on my private property?
Well, that's what's happening in the United States. Is the United States not the of the American people?
So if we're talking about immigration, here's what I want. I want wide gates and high walls. I want there to be good security to make sure that bad actors don't come into the United States, that there aren't gangs coming in, there aren't criminals coming in. But I do want there to be a lot of immigration.
I got a question. No. It's a blizzard outside.
Yeah.
Terrible blizzard. And there's a woman, as a knock on your door, as a pregnant woman. And she says, can I please come in and shelter from this terrible storm? Would you let her in?
Probably.
All right, so you let her in. And then she goes, oh, I'm going into labor. I'm having my baby right now. Should that child be allowed to own a piece of your house 20 years later?
No, but again, like I would say, like I'm happy. Like I think the basic idea of birthright citizenship based on soil was a bad idea.
Agreed. So considering the fact that it is still in place and we are experiencing this attack from an adversary, should this woman come to your house and say, "Let me in so I can give birth"?
Would you want to cut off all immigration?
I would.
I wouldn't.
A decade at least.
You would cut off all immigration for like in every sector
for at least 10 years. Yeah, I would say we don't need to have any more immigration. We've got we had 20 million or so people that came to the country. We have to sort out who can stay and who can go or who needs to go. I personally think that there's no problem with having a 10-year moratorium on immigration and we deport all people that are illegal.
What is America?
Be more specific.
How I could define the country very, very easily.
Okay.
I'm asking you, when someone asks you what America is, what would you say?
The United States of America is a sovereign state in North America based on classical liberalism.
I would say that America, the description is that, what is it, that a nation is a people and a country is its borders or something to that effect. So I would argue that the United States of America is a people with a long-standing history and tradition and unified culture that was built from rejecting one tyrant 3,000 miles away in exchange for 3,000 tyrants 1 mile away. Just to quote the Patriot. Brilliant. We have an American tradition built on the wars that we've fought, the things that we've built. These things are deeply rooted in a variety of sports and foods. We are told now by a large faction of people that we have no culture, and that is rooted in what the left describes as multiculturalism. So what I'm seeing happen right now is, when I look at this picture of Donald Trump talking about tariffs, he represents the nation of America. We are two distinct worldviews, a multicultural democracy, which does not believe in classical liberalism or American tradition. And we are a constitutional republic that does. Libertarians occupy a weird space where I believe that, and I'm not saying you're a libertarian, I'm saying libertarians, because they swing the vote a point or two, exist in the space of, it should be legal for me to do and I'll vote for it. That, like, the principal moral foundation of libertarianism is my right to liberty.
Yeah.
So what we
gay marriage and pot, good.
What we have, and right, so I think gay marriage is a really great example. Support for gay marriage is dropping for the first among Gen Z. It's the first generation where we see an inversion, because boomers were opposed, Gen X was kind of okay, millennials were largely okay, Gen Z went the other direction. And interestingly, Gen Z dropped dramatically from like 2020 to 2022, which is indicative of a couple things. One, that there was a cultural shift among Gen Z, which is much harder to accomplish and less likely. Or two, younger Gen Z moving into adulthood already held anti-gay marriage views. The gay marriage is a great example because the liberals said, let 2 guys or 2 women get married and do their thing. What's the worst that's going to happen? I mean, it's not like they're going to be teaching about sodomy in schools. Narrator, they started teaching about sodomy in schools. So the conservative argument has largely been, okay, we got to get rid of all of this because we can see that the slippery slope wasn't a fallacy, it was a fact. The actual American traditional, the constitutional Republicanist American liberal view is gay marriage is fine. We just have to ban the sodomy stuff in the schools. Conservatives go back and say, no, reverse it because it was proven bad. The left says, you're all fascist, we're going to keep doing more. The question is, how do you end up with a voting bloc in your country that wants to do away with your own way of life? These people are not America. The only
to back up a little bit, so Phil, you would have a 10-year moratorium.
Yep.
You want some amount of immigrants, is that right?
Indeed, yes.
So like, I don't want unlimited immigrants. I do want more immigrants. I think part of the reason pre-Biden that we had a big influx of immigration over the last 20 years is we basically set the speed limit too low, and we're surprised that people are speeding.
You want more immigrants than we have now?
Yeah, but I want them legal, and I want to focus it on ways that are going to be productive to America.
There's an estimate of 50 million non-citizens currently in the United States. That are either permanent residents or illegal immigrants. So
I would love to get
30 million.
I'd love to get more H-1B visas in. I also I flew down to the border.
So like
2 years
Dunkin'
ago.
Donuts and stuff.
Huh?
Like Dunkin' Donuts.
For H-1B?
That's what they're doing. Yeah. I don't know if I don't want to besmirch the good name of Dunkin' Donuts, but there were store clerks for donut shops and bank clerks that were H-1B.
I would love to be a brain drain on the rest of the world and have the smartest
with
people
that.
in other places come over.
That's not H-1B.
not
You're talking
what
about
H-1Bs
01.
are.
You're talking about like 01, 02. You're talking about K visas.
Okay.
H-1Bs are not brain.
Yeah, then I digress in the H-1B specifically, but I would love to be a brain drain on the rest of the world.
H-1Bs are we can't find anybody in this country, so we'll look somewhere else.
Yeah, I think they do that a lot with
then,
software and things like that.
And which is all fake. It's all a lie. And then you have
the other bit. I flew down to the border 2-3 years ago. I hung out with the Border Patrol. I hung out with people down there. I talked to farmers. Farmers are at an incredible disadvantage if they want to be legal at the moment because it's incredibly difficult to hire people legally through the process. One of the things that we've got in the country is we require, if you have legal immigrant labor, it has to be so high as to try to make it competitive for Americans doing it, and they still suffer for it. They still can't get people in, right? We actually don't have enough people that would do basic agricultural stuff in the United States.
Let me ask you a question. How do you feel about war with Iran?
I don't want to go to war with Iran.
Do you know why we are going to war with Iran?
We've wanted to get rid of the Ayatollah since
but why?
the 1980s. I don't know. What do you think?
The Ayatollahs largely object to the liberal economic order, the petrodollar system. They want to trade oil in other currencies, and they are not letting up on threatening the Red Sea, which, of course, are access to the Suez. The United States' global hegemony is largely prefaced upon the fact that we control all trade. We police the seas. We are the world police. The problem with the United States and the petrodollar system is that we don't produce enough. We don't export enough. In order to maintain a strong economy, there's a bunch of factors, but one simple component is you need to produce more than you import. You need to make more stuff than you're buying.
I see. That goes back to that zero-sum thing. Like an attorney and a doctor have a trade deficit with their grocery store, and they're doing fine.
So
aren't we the second largest exporter?
So let's just make it real simple for you. If you make $100 a week and you're spending 120, what happens to you?
Yeah,
go bankrupt.
That's not a trade deficit, though. That's a spending deficit.
So back to the point I was making, irrespective, I don't know what point you're trying to make. In order for a simple component of when an economy is strong is when it is selling more than it's buying. Like anyone else, you are making more money than you are spending. You then have more money to invest. And another easy way to explain it is they estimate that, today you need like $150,000 a year to live what was once described as middle class median. So you get 2 weeks of vacation, you got clean clothes, you got health care, you got a place to live, you can have a family. Well, if you make $150,000 a year, you're not really saving if you are living comfortably. You're going to cut back on some things you might think you need, but you'll save a little bit. If you're making $250,000 a year after taxes, you're going to have probably like $50K to invest, allowing you to grow your wealth. This is why it's important for countries to sell more than they buy. The U.S. is the exception. The reason for it is we don't do that, but we will kill you if you don't spend our money for oil. So for, let's just say like Russia, back when it was solely the petrodollar system, they would have to use rubles to buy dollars so they could use the dollars to buy oil. And the United States exported just the fact that we'll kill you if you don't lose our money. That is a wonderful system. If you believe in free trade, open borders, it works perfectly so long as you are willing to blow up other countries and assassinate world leaders who try to build a global order outside of the U.S. dollar. As the BRICS nations begin expanding and Iran seeks admittance, I think they may have gotten it with BRICS, the U.S. largely is getting pissed off. The war in Syria largely is about the Qatar-Turkey pipeline, where the U.S. said, we want to build this oil pipeline from Qatar through Syria, Turkey, into Europe because Russia is charging too much money. They control about 20% of natural gas through Gazprom. Syria responded that Vladimir Putin is our ally, and for this, we won't allow you to do it. So the U.S. said, then we will kill you. At first, they negotiated, and then they refused. Simply put, I believe it is fair to say the liberal economic order system, SWIFT payment, IMF, big banks, all of that is built around the United States is the world police, the police of the oceans and international trade. And for this reason, Americans will live like those in Capital City, the Hunger Games, so long as we're willing to drop bombs on the people who try to break that system. Notably, Muammar Gaddafi, who wanted to create an African Union and trade gold dinars for oil, and Saddam Hussein, who wanted to trade oil for euro. And so the U.S. said, now you're going to die. And then they did.
So I think we have growing degrees of overlap now. I'm unabashed free trader. I'm very much free trader.
Which cannot exist without a strong economy that produces more than it's buying.
Immigration. I'm not for open borders. I do want more immigrants to come in legally, but it sounds like you also want legal immigration. So we're talking about a question of degree there.
Yeah, all ones.
I'm an intervention skeptic. So I don't want to be bombing other countries if they're socialist
if
or they're
you want
theocratic.
to maintain a strong American economy that engages in the trade practices that you believe in, it requires us to blow up anybody who would oppose the petrodollar system.
In order for me to be in favor of free trade, I have to blow up anybody that is not using dollars. That's the position?
So let's elaborate. If
I agree.
If you want to give our manufacturing to a foreign country, so we become an import nation, we are not producing enough to sell to the rest of the world. How do we maintain an economy when we are spending more than we generate?
Right. Okay. So here, I think you've got a point in terms of deficit spending. We're spending way more money than we have.
And we survive because we will kill anybody who tries to break that system. So the debt doesn't matter if we've got guns pointed at everyone's head, right? Like, I'll put it this way. Let's say you take $100 from your buddy and you go and blow it on cocaine. And then he comes to you and says, where's my money? And you pull out a gun and say, your money's gone. What's he going to do? He's going to put his hands up, turn around and walk away, and your debt's cleared, right?
Yeah.
That's America. Thanks for checking out this clip from Timcast IRL. Make sure to watch the show live Monday through Friday at 8 p.m. Subscribe to this channel, and we will see you all there.